I didn't lose everything by accident. I was deliberately destroyed. And the cruelest part, it was done by someone I once trusted more than myself. I kept quiet when I was humiliated. I swallowed my pride when I was lied to. But everything has its limits. At some point, I stopped being afraid. My name is Maya, and I'm one of those people who never give up. Even when it hurt, even when life tilted sideways, I kept moving. I wasn't born into a family of gallery owners, didn't have connections, didn't attend a prestigious college, but I had a vision. So I worked. Cheap drip coffee at 6 a.m., stained carpet in a shared office where the radiator rattled all winter. Freelance shifts stacked until my eyes burned. And at 2:17 a.m., still at the kitchen table, submitting another application I prayed someone would read. I lived in Portland, not downtown, but in a gray neighborhood of paper-thin walls where you could hear a neighbor yelling at her cat. Still, it felt like a beginning. I curated small shows, pitched projects to local galleries, met artists who hadn't sold their souls to fashion yet. It was messy, but real. Mine. And then there was Elena. Always there. From high school corridors to first parties, heartbreaks, and late nights with wine and borrowed cigarettes. She was an artist too, just in a different medium, jewelry, bold, outrageous, unapologetic. She swore she'd never work for the man and would build her own brand. We were opposites in a way that worked. I built structures, she tore them apart and remade them. But over time, something shifted. Envy flickered in her eyes. At first it sounded like jokes. Then came the looks. She belittled my wins, it's just your connections, or you just got lucky. I tried not to notice. Because it was Elena. My friend. Almost a sister. Maybe that's why I was afraid to leave her behind. I wanted her to be proud of me, even happy for me. The invitation from San Francisco hit like lightning. My hands shook as I held the envelope. A prestigious art center. My dream job. Real curatorial projects, big galleries, a chance to make a name. I reread the letter again and again, afraid it might vanish if I blinked. The first person I called wasn't my mom. It wasn't an ex. It was Elena. Are you serious? She said. Wow, Maya, that's huge. But there was no joy in her voice. A pause stretched too long. Are you happy for me? I asked. Of course. It's just. San Francisco? It's expensive. And how will you manage without me? She didn't know I was already packing. Moving felt like a confession. I wasn't just leaving a city, I was shedding my old skin, illusions included. San Francisco smelled like sea and ambition. Everyone hurried. Everyone was in the know. The gallery gleamed with bright white walls and fresh paint, possibility hanging in the air. For the first time I felt like I belonged. And that's where I met Julian. I remember that moment clearly, elevator to the third floor, white corridor, glass door, sign reading partner programs. I held a project folder, trying to breathe evenly. First week on the job. First pitch. Terrified, but I'd already learned how to turn fear into focus. He sat behind a glass desk in a gray jacket, top button undone. Dark hair, slightly tousled, like he'd just left a studio. He looked up, saw me, and smiled, sly, confident. You're new. Maya, right? Yes, Maya Collins. Are you Julian? That's right. Come in. Show me what you've got. I didn't know those words, come in, show me, would be the first thread in a web I'd spend months untangling. We worked together on my first project. I guided young artists, he negotiated with the people funding them. Sharp, decisive, a little condescending, but effective. He knew when to persuade, when to say yes, and when to just meet your eyes in silence. Somehow, that was enough. I tried not to read between the lines. But the lines spoke anyway, the way he watched me present, the careless touch on my shoulder, The offhand, you look like a museum piece today, in a good way. I laughed. Then I started waiting for those words. A month later, after an opening, we slipped out for dinner. White wine, talk about the Italian contemporary scene. Then silence. He looked at me and said, "You're very sensitive to detail. That's rare. And it's attractive." Not a confession, a step. I took one too. We started seeing each other discreetly. Cafes on the far side of town, hidden galleries, his apartment full of books and cigarette smoke. Chaotic, unlabeled. Neither of us wanted to admit something had begun. But it had. And through all of it, I thought of Elena. I could hear her sharp tongue if she'd seen me now. "You're not just an art historian anymore, you're part of the art elite." I wrote her that I was fine, that I was working with great people, that there was even someone special. Her reply came fast. Too fast. "Oh. Someone special? Don't lose your head, Maya. In places like that, everyone plays roles. You'll be the heroine of someone else's play, and you won't even notice when they kill you off in the second act." Winky face. I laughed at the time. But something tugged deep down. Elena had a talent for noticing the invisible. I didn't know how prophetic that line would be. Inviting Elena to San Francisco felt natural. She was my friend, sharp edges and all. I wanted her to see what I'd built, that I wasn't just chasing projects, I was standing inside the dream we once sketched on cafe napkins in high school. "Come to the opening. You'll have your own badge. I'll show you everything," I wrote. Her reply was short. "I'll think about it. If I can find a cheap ticket." 2 days later she sent a booking screenshot, then added, "Get the guest room ready. And wine." I was delighted. Really? Back then. When she arrived, she looked like she belonged here already. Big sunglasses, a light trench, a suitcase plastered with Berlin and New York stickers. She hugged me tight, longer than expected, and whispered, "So, San Francisco star? Show me your empire." Over lunch I told her about the gallery, the artists, the new projects. She listened in silence, swirling wine. Her silence ticked like a timer. "And who's the special one you mentioned?" "Julian. We worked together." "Well, not only that." "From work?" One eyebrow arched. "Smart. Keep your friends close and your curators even closer." She laughed. I didn't. Her tone stung. I didn't see it yet for what it was, not irony, but a signal. She hadn't come just to watch. She'd come to play. Opening night was chaos, hundreds of guests, champagne, interviews, flashes. I ran between halls, Elena ran between glasses. She slid into the crowd like a drop of oil in water, bright, defiant, impossible to ignore. Curators, collectors, journalists, her charm worked. And for the first time it scared me. I spotted her beside Julian, her hand on his shoulder. He was laughing. They were whispering. Cold swept through me, not sharp, just hollow, the kind that empties you from the inside. At home I asked, "Do you feel like you're part of the scene yet?" She smirked. "The stage isn't a place, Maya. It's a role. And I know mine." She went to sleep in my guest room. I lay awake staring at the ceiling. Her words scratched at me. It felt as if she'd already marked the territory, and I was starting to sink in my own home. Elena stayed for a week. At first, I told myself she just hadn't seen everything yet. Then I decided she was escaping her routine for a while. And then I stopped making excuses. She was everywhere. Up before me. Coffee in my kitchen, the filter left unwashed, as if on purpose. Half an hour in the bathroom, a trail of perfume and mess. Her dress appeared in my closet. Her cream on my bathroom shelf. I never asked her to make herself at home. She did anyway. On the third day I found her at my computer in the study, scrolling through my decks. Do you mind if I look at how you structure your applications? She smiled. They're so well written. I'm learning. You could have asked. I would have shown you. But you're busy. I didn't want to bother you. She was touching things that were me, my work, my identity, like she had a right to. I noticed she was texting Julian more than I was. Their chance encounters at events weren't chance anymore. I tried to keep control, to be an adult, not to dramatize. But it felt like sitting in a room where someone kept turning down the oxygen. Then came the investors' meeting, the one I'd been preparing for months. I invited Elena as a guest. She arrived before me, in a designer coat, handing out her own business cards, Elena Atelier stamped across them. Hi, she said, rushing up to kiss my cheek. I spoke with Mr. Kaplan. He's a fan of my rings. He says we could collaborate. Can you imagine? Collaborate? Yes. He's looking for fresh talent, I'm looking for new platforms. And you know I've always been good at fitting in. Before I could reply, Mr. Kaplan himself appeared. Elena. Your designs are fascinating. We must talk more. My smile froze. My name never left his lips. It was my meeting. My investors. My network. And she'd pulled the tools from my hands as if they were hers all along. That night I stood by the window a long time, staring at a city that had once felt so sincere. I asked myself if I'd lost my mind. Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe just jealous. But something inside me clenched like a fist. I knew this pattern. I'd seen it in others who lost everything, not to war or misfortune, but to someone close enough to slip the knife in quietly. Elena hadn't come as a friend. She came as a shadow. And the shadow was growing. I thought I could still salvage it. A temporary setback, that's all. Elena would leave, we'd hug at the airport like always, and she'd joke, well, now you're a real big shot, Maya. But she didn't leave. First she postponed her flight. Then she stopped mentioning it. One evening she simply said, I think I'll stay a little longer. There's such energy here. Inspiration. I want to work. Maybe I'll even find a gallery to show my pieces. I said nothing. What could I say? No. This was San Francisco, not my private island. Inside, I was boiling. Work grew strange. Hard to define at first. A meeting I wasn't invited to. An artist who suddenly stopped replying. A partner who wrote he'd heard I was unfair to curators. I reread the message 3 times, not understanding where it came from. And Julian changed. His text shrank to one-liners. Dinners turned into see you at the event. Then even that stopped. I tried not to push. To be calm. Adult. But when he cancelled our joint presentation at the last minute, without explanation, I knew something had broken. I asked him straight. Are we okay? He looked away, then shrugged. I need some space. It's too much. And maybe we were a good team, but maybe mixing work and personal life was a mistake. Flat voice. Indifferent. Like a line rehearsed. I left the office on autopilot. It was raining. No umbrella. Getting wet felt almost right, as if the world was cutting the threads one by one. That night Elena was in my kitchen. Shrimp in my pan, music low, humming under her breath. She looked up. Oh. You're soaked. Drama doesn't suit you, May. You've always been so strong. I didn't answer. I walked away. How do you tell someone you suspect they're dismantling your life, when you have no proof? How do you tell a friend you've become a stranger, without breaking yourself further? True evil doesn't storm the door. It sits on your couch. Drinks your coffee. And tells you you're being dramatic. When something big collapses, you don't hear an explosion. No thunder. No screaming. Only silence, slippery, cold, Liam was the first to go, my lead artist on a project I'd been building for almost a year. We met for coffee to discuss his debut. He looked tense. Maya. I don't know how to say this. I've decided to move on to another project. What? I've been offered terms I can't refuse. Bigger fee. Wider audience. And, to be honest, after some of the things I've heard. What things? He hesitated, then added quietly. They said you always reimagine raw identity for public space. The word stabbed. That exact phrase was from my proposal. My draft. Liam looked away. I don't want to get involved in internal politics. I'm sorry. I sat with my coffee, not understanding any of it. A few days later, another artist withdrew. Then a curator claimed doubts have arisen about your transparency. Then a sponsor vanished without explanation. Piece by piece, the project bled out. I combed through my correspondence, hunting for what I'd missed. Nothing. But the feeling of being pushed from my own creation grew daily. People avoided me. Whispers slid through the halls. You couldn't catch them, but you felt them. One afternoon I passed a conference room and heard. Well, she's always like that, taking other people's ideas and repackaging them. Yeah, and then there are those stories about how she manipulates people. I stepped in. Silence. Eyes down. That evening I received a message, I was being removed from the project. No explanation. And Julian was silent too. Completely. I wrote, I called, nothing. Like a ghost. I started asking myself, maybe I really had done something wrong. Maybe this was justice. Then I saw a post in a professional community, Atelier Solis presents young artists in collaboration with the Aurelia Gallery. The same venue where I was supposed to launch Liam's debut. I reread the curator's name. The same one who had refused to work with me. I tried to breathe, but the air wouldn't come. In the photo, Elena in a white dress, smiling. And next to her, Julian. I clicked the link. Her exhibition featured the very artists I'd prepared. The very concepts I'd developed for years. She had cut my work out of my life and pasted it onto hers, like a collage. I was removed from the gallery on suspicion of unethical practices. She became the new face of innovation in the art world. And I was silent, stitched into my own defeat. But not for long. The real story hadn't even begun. Elena didn't come home that night. It was the first time since she'd arrived. She never warned me, but she always came back. And even though it no longer felt like my home, I still waited, with that absurd hope she'd walk in, kick off her heels, and toss a sarcastic line about the latest art elite party. The night passed. The door stayed closed. I texted, "Where are you? Everything okay?" Then I called. Once. Twice. 5 times. 10. Voicemail. Each beep made the silence heavier. I couldn't sleep. I sat in the kitchen with a cup of cold tea, staring into the dark window. I was torn between two feelings, a steady anxiety, and something bitter I didn't want to name. Morning was sticky and slow, like punishment. My phone buzzed once, an unknown number, then hung up. I stared at the screen, heart pounding, but no one called back. At the gallery, Nora, one of the coordinators, one of the few who hadn't fully turned away, stopped me in the hallway. She approached carefully, as if her words might cut. They did. I don't know if anyone told you, but... Elena. She's living with Julian now. What? They're together. I saw them at the event yesterday. She's telling everyone she moved in. That they're official. She winced. I'm sorry. I didn't know you didn't know. It was like being knocked out of reality. Light, sound, voices, gone, as if I'd plunged underwater until only the pulse in my ears remained. I walked out without remembering how I reached the door. I just kept moving. Anywhere that wasn't here. Anywhere I didn't have to hear the words in my head, she's there, she's with him, she betrayed you completely. It wasn't about the relationship. Not about him leaving me. It was about her knowing. She'd listened when I shared my most vulnerable parts. She knew what he meant to me, and did it anyway. The night of silence snapped into focus. She hadn't answered because she was in his bed. In his new life. In my old world. Back at the apartment, I collapsed on the floor, beside the sofa where we once drank wine, where she'd complained about her ex, where I'd trusted her like a sister. And I finally let myself cry. I cried for everything at once, the project, the lost love, the broken trust, the piece of myself I'd handed them, the piece they tossed away like trash. I didn't sleep. I didn't even dry my face. Somewhere in that sleepless stretch a new feeling rose, cold and clean as a blade. I would no longer be silent. I hadn't left the apartment for 3 days. My phone was silent. My DMs, silent. I used to live inside a stream of openings, parties, meetings. Now I was forgotten. Crossed out. But I wasn't dead. On the evening of the 3rd day, I pulled an old flash drive from a drawer. Drafts, notes, correspondence with artists, the last few years of my work lived there. I started sorting, copying anything that could prove anything, concepts, dates, files, ideas I'd sketched long before Elena showed up in San Francisco. In the emails her name kept flashing. Elena. She had read my plans, asked about each step, learned from me. I couldn't sit still while she and Julian rewrote my story. I remembered Adrian. We'd met at an art forum last fall. Journalist. Independent, sharp. His investigation of a corrupt auction house had shaken the market. I opened our old chat. Hi. This is Maya Collins. I need to talk. I have a story. And proof. He replied in 10 minutes. Sounds serious. Call me. We spoke for 2 hours. I laid it all out, people, dates, timelines. He barely interrupted, just asked precise questions. That's hard to believe, he said finally. But if you have even part of this, it's huge. I have everything. And more. Then we'll do it. Quietly. Until the time is right. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe. Not freely, but breathe. I had no job. No platform. But I had the truth. And hatred that had stopped burning and started working as fuel. While Adrian gathered materials, I took a role at a small online platform for young artists. Not prestigious, not the big stage, but no one there knew me as the one who disgraced herself. I could start over. Quietly. From scratch. I reached out to artists Elena hadn't managed to lure away. They didn't trust me, not yet. I wasn't in a hurry. This time I moved carefully. Without naivety. Then an email arrived. No name. Subject, this should interest you. Inside, screenshots. Internal correspondence between Julian and the curator. Plans to remove Maya from the lineup without any loud scandals. And a PDF of a grant application titled Urban Identity, Future Raw. My name was on it. My signature. Only the file date read March 12, 2:14 a.m., a time I knew I'd been asleep. I reread it 3 times. This wasn't just emotion anymore. It was conspiracy. Documented. Someone on the inside had dared to send me the truth. I wrote to Adrian, "You won't believe what I got." He replied, "Let's move to the next stage." This wasn't just my comeback. This was my justice. I realized I couldn't afford to be open anymore. Not after being demolished on live TV with no right to respond. So I moved in silence. The platform where I worked was small but flexible. No corporate playbook, just genuine people, young artists not yet broken by the rules of the game. I ran Zooms, published new names, spun up anonymous profiles to spread content. Brick by brick, I was building a new foundation. Meanwhile, Adrian worked the evidence. He'd mapped everything: timelines, events, correspondence, Elena and Julian's media footprints. A frontal assault wouldn't work, their position was too strong. But there were weak spots. Money was one of them. He uncovered that a grant Elena received, Orion Grant Program, had been built on my project City Echo, Spaces Between Us. The submission even included a slide lifted from my presentation, title swapped, my name erased. The galleries were compromised, so we pivoted to the press. While Adrian prepared the piece, I organized online interviews with artists who hadn't made it into the official scene. I gave them a platform and censored, no curatorial filter. They answered in kind. My little project began to grow. One of the artists Elena had tried to pry away wrote, "I believed you when you silently gave me a place." She promised success. You promised space. It's not the same thing. I copied the line into my notebook. Then the day I'd been waiting for arrived. Adrian called. Nova Art Summit, the season's keystone, had confirmed his talk. He would speak on media ethics in contemporary art and then do what I'd dreamed of since the first day of the betrayal. "Are you ready?" he asked. "I was born for this," I said. I sat before the hotel mirror. Black jacket. Hair pulled back. No jewelry. No smile. This wasn't just me. This was the woman they tried to erase, and failed. Taxis roared outside. Backstage, banners went up, Atelier Solis, Future Raw. I knew that after today, nothing would be the same. The hall filled with designer coats and badges, faces I once knew. Journalists, curators, partners. Even those who hadn't met my eyes 6 months ago now gathered to witness Elena's big comeback. She called it that online: hashtags, teasers, glossy clips, hashtag Future Raw, hashtag Elena is back, hashtag new power in art. She took the stage as always, confident, beautiful, armed with that unintentional charisma. A white coat. A steady voice. She showcased the artist she'd pried from my hands and spoke about her mission to give voice to marginalized creators. And it sounded almost true. I sat in the back row. No name. No status. Just one of hundreds, with a small flash drive in my hand. It held the truth that would break this performance. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. A single text: "Don't do it. You'll regret it." I froze. A minute later, when I opened my bag, the flash drive was gone. My pulse spiked, until I reached deeper and felt the second one. My copy. I hadn't trusted anyone, not even the zipper on that bag. 15 minutes later, Adrian was due on stage. I spotted him near the entrance in a black shirt, notes in hand. He caught my eye and nodded. Our silent "let's begin." The last minutes of Elena's talk dragged. She'd relaxed. Believed she was back. She joked, soaked up applause, even glanced my way. For a second our eyes locked. I didn't look away. Silence. Then the mic. And now, Adrian Wells, independent journalist and media ethics researcher. Topic: the line between borrowing and stealing. How to preserve authorship in the age of collaboration. She was still smiling. She didn't know her world was about to crack. Adrian stepped up. His voice was calm. Precise. "Good afternoon. I'm not here to give a comfortable speech. I'm here to show what happens when art becomes a mask for fraud, conspiracy, and betrayal." The front rows went still. Elena leaned forward. "For the past 6 months I've investigated appropriation of ideas, grant manipulation, forged applications, theft from artists, and ethical violations within the organization operating under the name Atelier Solis." A low rumble. Someone stood. On the screen, screenshots. Emails. Timelines. Julian's correspondence. Forged signatures, beside the original files I'd saved months earlier. It isn't just one person who suffered, Adrian said. A system suffered, one that silenced real voices to elevate a convenient fake. Today, the truth comes out. Elena stood motionless, face drained. Julian was gone, he'd slipped out during the first slides. Like a rat fleeing a burning ship. Cameras rolled. The livestream kept running. I watched their reputation crumble, piece by piece. And I felt no joy. This wasn't revenge. This was me taking back what was mine. After Adrian's speech, the hall felt suspended. People didn't leave, they just sat, eyes flicking from screen to stage, from stage to Elena. She stood by her installation, frozen. Microphone in hand, no words. Her mouth opened, closed. Her gaze darted, to the crowd, to her phone, to nowhere. For the first time in years, she looked unscripted. I didn't approach. I only watched. Finally she spoke. Her voice started thin, then slid back into the familiar, polished, professional, crowd control. This is an attack. Not journalism. A planned campaign against me. The materials are fabricated. Ill-wishers trying to discredit a woman who came from nothing and succeeded. The audience stayed still. Eyes locked. No one applauded. By morning her name was everywhere, but not the way she liked. Elena Brooks under suspicion. Adrian Wells' investigation shakes the art world. Julian Hayes disappears after scandal, whereabouts unknown. He was gone. I reread the headlines, stunned. No one had seen him at the office. Phones off. Accounts wiped. Only a trail of emails now moving across lawyers' desks. It didn't reassure me. It made me wary. If he vanished, he was hiding something worse, and he knew I would see this through. Meanwhile, messages poured in. Thank yous. Apologies. And one anonymous letter, printed, stamped, no return address. What you did changed the rules. But don't think it's over. There are more players than you see. Not everyone stayed silent out of fear of Elena. Some were afraid of someone worse. I read it 3 times. What felt like an ending was only a door to another war. When the truth surfaces, the shadows start to move. I had to be ready. After the exposé, Elena vanished. No posts. No statements. The air felt cleaner, for a moment. Then the family messages began. My aunt from Oregon wrote first. Maya, what is this I heard from Elena? That you tried to destroy her? That you launched some journalistic campaign out of revenge? She says you manipulated information and made her look like a monster. She was in tears when she called. I reread it, stunned. Then my brother called. We rarely talk, but his voice was tight. Mayor, seriously, what's going on? Elena wrote to Mom. She says you're in danger. That you've been consumed by revenge and lost touch with reality. She's really worried. She's lying, I said. She destroyed me. She took everything. But she's your childhood friend. She couldn't just. She could. An hour later my mother's voice came through the phone. Soft. Worried. Sweetheart, maybe you've gone too far? Maybe you're letting anger drive you? I closed my eyes. That one question cut deeper than all the rumors. I turned off my phone. My hand shook. Elena had stepped out of the media light and aimed at my family. She knew where it would hurt most. I didn't answer anyone for days. I couldn't. Then another anonymous message arrived. Encrypted. No signature. You think you won? Think again. She has friends. Not in the press or galleries. Where phones are silent but orders are obeyed. At first I thought it was trolling. Then Adrian wrote. My email's been hacked. Someone's digging through my archives. Don't know if it's related, but it looks deliberate, either to find dirt or to scare me. Fear crept into every crack. I didn't feel safe anymore. Another hit followed. My platform received a letter from an anonymous client claiming I was unstable with a history of revenge and dangerous for any partnership. My bosses trusted me, but I saw doubt flicker. We won't give in to pressure, my director said. But you need to be very careful. A new wave. Nastier. Personal. This time they weren't just trying to cut me off from my work. They were trying to make me the problem. A mental problem. A social problem. Someone you can't trust. Someone you can't sympathize with. Because the cruelest thing you can do to a victim is convince the world she's the aggressor. The past weeks felt like a book turned upside down. The chapter called Victory ended mid-sentence, a new one began, Doubts. People who had backed me yesterday now looked over their shoulders. Elena knew exactly what she was doing. No official statement kills a reputation like insinuation. Sow enough doubt, and people invent the rest themselves. I had no choice but to press forward. I met Adrian in person for the first time since the exposé. A small cafe on the Brooklyn waterfront. He looked tired, but his eyes burned. This isn't about Elena anymore, he said. It's about influence. She'll give anything to regain control, and she'll get dirtier. What do we do? Talk. But this time, not just about us. We planned a series of interviews with other victims of similar schemes, artists intimidated into silence, employees forced to sign fabricated reports, curators who looked away to save their careers. We gave them a platform. The first article went live on my page. What happens to those who refuse to play by someone else's rules? No names. Real voices. No exaggeration. Attention returned. DMs poured in. Each story felt like another nail in the coffin of the empire Elena and Julian had built. Then came the moment that cut deepest. Ethan, a young artist from Texas I'd lost to false complaints, wrote. I'm ready to speak publicly. I kept quiet because I was threatened, but now. I want the truth. And I want to say you weren't to blame. I saw how you were destroyed. I kept quiet. No more. We recorded a video interview, direct, unedited. He named names, pointed to details only an insider could know. He described being pressured to refuse to work with me, then offered a better contract, on the condition he never mentioned Maya Collins. The video hit 40,000 views in a single day. That's when a major law firm reached out. They were ready to file a class action suit against Atelier Solis and Julian personally, if I would serve as lead plaintiff. It will be long. And painful, the lawyer said. But we can do more than win the case. We can shut them out of this industry for good. I agreed. This time, for good. Not just to protect myself, to dismantle what kept people afraid. Because the truth isn't a gift. It's a war. The case was heard in federal court. Maying. Exhausting. Every line of the transcript felt like reliving the last year's hell. But I was there, at every hearing, through every pause, under every glance from the judge as he studied the files that showed how they had lied, stolen, erased. I sat beside Adrian. Calm, steady. Even when the first testimonies were read. Artists. Curators. Former employees. They spoke with conviction. Some trembled, but no one refused. Liam, the artist I'd lost first, raised his eyes to the judge. She took Maya's words, her concepts, her vision. I know, because I heard them from Maya months before Elena repeated them to me as her own. Then Diane, one of those who had once stayed silent, stepped forward. Her voice shook. I signed false reports. I was forced to. But I knew it was wrong. And I kept quiet. I'm not proud of it. The courtroom held its breath. Even Elena's lawyers looked unsettled. Elena herself said nothing. No statements. No emotion. She arrived in black, hair pulled back, almost no makeup. She never met my eyes. She didn't even turn when I passed her on the way to the stand. When the judge read the verdict, the lawsuit is granted. Found guilty of fraud, unlawful appropriation of intellectual property, and defamation through deception, I felt no euphoria. Only silence. Deep. Finally true. No deception. No lies. My lawyer smiled. Adrian nodded. He knew this wasn't just a win. It was an end. Elena left the courtroom without a word. No cameras. No defenders. For once, she wasn't controlling the narrative. After the trial, messages poured in from people who hadn't written in months. Some apologized. Some thanked me. I answered only one. I didn't do it for recognition. I did it so no one else would have to go through what I did. Then came the unpacking, psychological, emotional. I still haven't fully recovered. But inside, I finally felt like myself again. And when my mother called that evening and said, "I knew you were stronger than they thought," I cried for the first time in a long time. Not from pain. From relief. I was already living in New York when I saw her again. Quiet autumn. The air smelled of coffee and wet asphalt. I was walking home after presenting a new project, an exhibition for first chance young artists, when I noticed her near my building. Elena. Sitting on a bench. Same black jacket she wore to court. Hair pulled back. Exhausted. Something different in her eyes, not defiance, not fear. "Hi," she said softly. "I wasn't supposed to come. But I have to tell you." I stopped. Said nothing. I wasn't sure I ever wanted to hear her voice again. She went on. "I didn't come to make excuses. I can't. I just want you to know. I didn't plan for it to go this far. It started with jealousy. It was always there. Since we were kids. I felt like a shadow. You were bright, bold, determined. People noticed you. And I was always your friend." Her shoulders sank. For a moment she looked like a child. "When you moved away, I thought I was alone. Then there was Julian. Power. Connections. It felt like a chance to become someone. I didn't stop, even when I knew I was hurting you. You destroyed me," I said at last. My voice was even. No anger. No tears. "You knew what you were doing. You were stealing. You were lying. This wasn't just jealousy, Elena. It was betrayal. Deep. Precise. Systematic. I know." Her voice cracked. "And I'm not asking for forgiveness. You don't owe me that. I just don't want to live with my silence anymore. You won't get forgiveness from me." She nodded. No drama. No theatrics. Just understanding. Then she rose and walked away. I stood there, listening to her footsteps fade. Relief came, not because she appeared, but because I didn't fall again. That evening I sat on the roof, watched the city lights, and finally let myself think, I'm back. Not where I started, further. Stronger. Cleaner. I can't be destroyed anymore. I'm not chasing recognition. I'm building myself, not for someone else. For me. I don't want another war. But if it comes, I won't be afraid. I've already walked through hell and returned, not as a heroine, but as a human being. Real. Alive. Free.